Activity 1.2 is called What to Do. The essential questions you'll notice are at the top as always. How do you express yourself and your creativity through computer science? This is where you're going to start to look at coding and how you can take a project and put kind of your spin or your twist on it. Number 2, we've already done that one. We did that for activity 1.1. And the last one, how can computer programs solve problems? This flowchart infographic would be something that you could download and then put in your Google Drive. So all you have to do is go to your Google Drive, create a new folder, and then every time you download something, when you click Show in Folder, you just drag it right over to your Google Drive folder. First part you're going to come across is how to execute a task. And remember, vocabulary terms, click on them, write those down right in your notes. You can also highlight, so select something, and then it pops up with highlight or add a note if you want to add notes on your website, web page. Think about a device that needs human input. So these questions here, you can type your responses right here in the text box, or you can write those down in your notes. Either way works perfectly fine. The next part is going to get into algorithms. Now, an algorithm right here is an ordered set of instructions that are used to carry out a task. If somebody tells you to do something and you have several steps which you need to do in order to complete that task, you may look something like this. It might look at kind of like a step-by-step list, and that's what an algorithm is. So at 6 p.m., ask how many people will be eating dinner, repeat the following for the number of diners. So you're doing these same steps over and over again. That's your algorithm. There's no shapes, there's no symbols, it's a step-by-step. Now some people will use like a sticky note. Well, they'll write down, step number 1, I have to do this. Step number 2, I have to do this. That's what an algorithm would look like. PLTW Gateway Notebook, a reminder from activity 1.1, whenever you see that, these 3 questions should be written down in your notes, the answers specifically. And all you have to do is write down activity 1.2, question number 1, write your answers. Writing an algorithm. Take the time to watch this video. It takes you through algorithmic thinking, and it takes you through how to plan a party based on here's step number 1, here's step number 2, and then also it's going to get into what happens if there's a condition or something that occurs that you weren't really anticipating or expecting. A little more information about what algorithms do. And again, here's PLTW Gateway Notebook. That needs to be written in your notes. And this is something I will check when I check through your notebooks. Flowchart. So now you have to think about what you've done prior is an algorithm. You're now switching or transferring that into a flowchart. Now a flowchart, this right here needs to be written in your notes. You need to know that an oval starts and ends the flowchart. Rectangles are all your actions, your code, your commands. A rhombus, we'll get to that later, but a rhombus is a decision. It can be a yes, no, true, false type of a question. And an arrow takes you from one event or one action to the next. Now here's a great example. So it's going to show you just part of this here. Begin. So if you're planning a party, you're going to begin. First thing you would do is choose the date to host the party, decide where to host the party, send invitations. It's just going to keep going in order. You would not choose the date of the party last, and you wouldn't want to decide where to host the party last. You got to do certain things, certain skills in order. Close out of that. And then when you come back down here, it's going to take you to conditional statements. A conditional statement can be answered with yes, no, or true or false. So for instance, right here, if you begin, your first question might start off with, is it 6 p.m.? If the answer is no, keep doing your homework. If the answer is yes, it is 6 p.m., then you're doing all of these steps here. And then it just shows you count to, is it a specific number? You have to count to, let's say there's 10 people coming to the dinner. Place plates and silverware and cups out. You're going to increase the count. So I just did 1, there's 2, there's 3. Does the count equal 10? If it doesn't, you go right back up here and you keep adding to it. If the count equals the number you wanted to, then you just end. You stop with that activity. Flowchart infographic, it takes you there. Here's a step-by-step flowchart. All it is a drag and drop. So you take this up and drop it in up here where you think it should go. PLTW Gateway Notebook. This is where you're going to create algorithms and flowcharts. Remember, a flowchart is not the same as an algorithm. Flowchart contains symbols and shapes, and an algorithm is a step-by-step. Step 1, step 2, and so forth. Mirror drawing. This is when you need to find a partner, and you're going to do this as a partner activity. Now it says draw the picture your teacher describes. Instead of the word teacher, replace that with partner. What you'll do is your partner will describe several shapes for you to draw, and you have to draw it exactly the way they tell you to draw it. So if you are the person describing the shapes, be very specific. You may say something like this. In the top left corner of your notebook, go down 4 squares over 3 squares and draw a circle that is approximately 4 squares tall, something like that. And then you're going to give them, they suggest 5 geometric shapes, several shapes, and then you're going to show the other person what the drawing was. And then you just switch roles or switch jobs. Conclusion, here's some conclusion questions. These can be answered in your notebook, and then all you would do is transfer those over to PowerSchool Learning Unified, wherever those questions are located. All right, and that's the end of Activity 1.2. Thanks.